It's time for another episode of Robin Avis Ramble.
Yay. Are you looking at me for yay? Sorry, I have the 4 o'clocks.
Yeah, you don't seem so thrilled by it right now.
I'll get there.
You're going to get excited?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm wondering if
Yeah.
I'm regretting not bringing coffee.
It was a interesting start to the day for us a little bit. We did a space this afternoon with Gia McCool and some other folks. It's cool. It was our first experience kind of taking part in the space, and I didn't hate it. I think we need to do more of it.
Yeah. It's a skill.
It's a skill.
Yeah.
I mean, it is a little just different in terms of, I mean, I don't know. Is it? I mean, you and I, like, this is not edited. Like, we just talk and whatever comes out of our mouths, we do. But I guess I have the option. If we said something really stupid, I could be like, yeah, I'm not putting that on the internet versus a space. It's out there. Once it's out there, right?
Well, here though, if I have a thought, I don't have to wait so long to speak.
Yeah.
That was the hard thing for me.
Oh, because there's other people speaking and all that, kind of waiting your turn. Yeah, that is a little bit different. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I think it went pretty well. I didn't say anything that I didn't feel like didn't really accurately represent how I really think. So
No.
all right. Well, enough about that.
Okay.
So the topic that I've got for us today is quite literally. Usually I like to attribute these topics to somebody, but I can't, because just about every third post that's showing up on the timeline is about duty sex.
Duty sex.
Yeah. So you and I have talked about this topic before. Not really in the duty sex context, but obviously it's a hot topic because it keeps coming up. Like, it may, I don't think it was that many months ago that people were talking about it in a little bit of a different context. Now it's being talked about it again in the duty sex context, and like all kinds of people are talking about it. Like anybody in this kind of like relationship giving advice space is kind of talking about it. So
All right. How has anybody defined it?
I
like to be sure I know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I'm sure everybody has. Here's what I would say I think is the common definition of it,
Okay.
based on what I'm seeing. So it is having sex with your husband,
Okay.
even if you don't want to. So
Okay.
with
So
sex,
it's specifically about women.
it is specifically aimed, at least the context of the conversations. Yeah, and I think that's fair potentially to bring up, because there could be marriages where maybe men are the ones that are not like giving to their wives as sexually as they would like them to.
Sure.
But that is not really the context.
Okay.
Now, maybe we could kick both of those around. Maybe that would be fair to this topic to talk about it from both angles. But the context in which I'm seeing it is wives who are not sleeping with their husbands as often as the husbands would like, or wives who are not wanting sex as often as their husbands would like, but then kind of going and having sex with them anyway.
Okay.
So, kind of question one that I have is, so let's just say that a wife is in, and I know this could be a little bit of a struggle for you and I to talk through, because we don't really have this in our marriage. I mean, I wouldn't even say really, we don't have this in our marriage. I mean, I think our sex drive is pretty well matched. And like, we both enjoy having sex with one another, and we look forward to having sex with one another.
Yeah.
And if that wasn't happening, I'd say, there's probably, there's something wrong in our marriage we need to talk about. So we may struggle to talk about this a little bit. Mm-hmm. But if a wife doesn't want to have sex with her husband, she's not in the mood, whatever that is, and she's like, okay, I'm going to just go have sex with my husband. Well, there are some biological, bodily kind of things that are going to make sex a little easier. If a woman is well moisturized.
I know where you're going with this.
It's just going to be another one's going to make your cheeks hurt when we talk about it.
Yeah.
So
but okay, but
you know where I'm
listen.
going. Okay.
Right. So never have I ever regretted having sex. There have been times when you've been more in the mood than I am, but generally speaking, if there's a hint of a spark between you and your man, the moisturization that you're talking about will come along.
Okay, that's what I was trying to ask, because I think like in our relationship, that's not something that I've experienced.
Yeah.
Where you have not been ready to receive.
Okay, but in all honesty, there have been times where it has, we'll just say, taken a little more work or time.
Sure.
And you've of course noticed that, right?
Maybe. I mean, maybe that was like so many years ago, because I would not say that's anything of recent history that I can.
No,
Yeah.
I mean, but it doesn't always have the same pace.
Yes.
I guess is what I'm saying.
Sure. Okay.
And sometimes that can just be like, I'm a little more tired and you're a little more frisky, you know, like there are times when your desire and my desire maybe are not equally matched.
Sure.
Is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I'm not saying I'm having duty sex. I'm just saying in general, on a day-to-day basis, like our energy levels ebb and flow.
Yeah.
So, but I think in even duty sex, like if there's even a hint of a spark there.
So I think that's what I'm trying to ask. But in this context, like if the woman isn't wanting to have sex with the man, like how do they overcome that?
Yeah, I think you have to be, part of my language, a pretty stone cold bitch not to be overcome with sexual desire.
Like once it's like
Yeah.
going,
Like you could be like, no, like, okay, no, like I'm still not into this. But at a certain point in time, like I think your body is going to take over and realize that it is
finally
enjoyable.
Kind of get the point and go
Yeah.
with it. Yeah. Yeah, I think I know what you're saying. I just, yeah, maybe that makes sense. But so you don't think there's a scenario where a woman is like, I don't want to have sex. I don't have the same sex drive as my husband, but because I love my husband, I'm going to go through the motions anyways, even though I don't feel like it. And you're saying you don't think there's any scenario where going through the motions is going to lead to where they're actually enjoying it.
Yeah, I think if there needs to be some attraction there. I mean, in a case where you're not attracted to your husband and that's why you're not wanting to have sex, I don't really know that scenario.
Yeah, it sounds like a great topic they should be talking about.
Right. But in the scenario where you are attracted to your husband and you're just not in the mood for whatever reason, I do think that can be overcome through the actions of sex.
Yeah.
And like it might take a little longer in the beginning.
Yeah.
The warm-up process, if you will.
Yeah. And I kind of have the same question from the man side, which I think is, I struggle to kind of understand, because like I said, I mean, I think our sex drive has always been at least on par with one another, if mine hasn't been a little stronger at times. But so like, as a man being biologically ready for sex, hasn't been a problem. But, you know, there are marriages where the man just doesn't have the same sex drive. And again, there's probably a reason for that, because men typically will, like maybe you want to go get your hormones checked. Maybe there's some underlying stuff happening there. But, you know, just to be fair to the conversation, should a man also have duty sex with his wife? And what does that actually look like if he's not into it?
Well, I think we had that cheek hurting conversation a couple rambles ago.
So-
Maybe it looks something like that.
Yeah. So where it's there's more than.
I mean,
I'm struggling with what I want to say.
certainly
Yeah.
there are disabled people in the world who still manage to have
Yes.
sexual
Good
in-
example.
Yes, like
yeah.
sexual
There
interactions
are
with
many
others.
ways to find sexual pleasure.
Yes. So if the downtown isn't coming to the party, that can be other situations happening.
Yeah.
So, and I would think like,
So, but I think the point being, like, a husband, it goes both ways, right?
Yeah.
Like, a husband also needs to kind of meet his wife's sexual needs, even though that's not her number one need, such as it is for a man.
correct.
It is still a need.
Sure.
And at times, that need will be stronger than others.
Mm-hmm.
So you also, should be meeting that.
Yeah. I think that apart from biblically, it says there can be times when you're not having sex, but that should be short. And for us, it's traditionally around childbirth. And then, when things settle down physically,
Yeah.
other things resume. And I think that's a healthy marriage. Like, you should be wanting to have sex unless there's some medical reason that you need to abstain or whatever. And that should only be for a certain time.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's a great example is looking back upon our marriage. I mean, that would be like the example is that,
Yeah.
after sex or after sex,
After sex
pregnancy,
comes a baby.
Yeah. After sex comes a baby. Right. And then after the pregnancy, like there is a period of time that a woman needs to heal up and, those sorts of things.
And then having an infant in the house.
Having
like,
an infant, right? Things can get
Yeah.
difficult, and you talked about this before when we kind of touched on this topic in one of our other episodes. Kind of you would actually write on the calendar. That like just not that was the only day that we could have sex,
right.
but that it was some reminder that like, hey, like we've got a new kid in the house, just had whatever, like if things got too busy, just life getting in the way and through circumstances maybe we weren't having sex, you had this kind of reminder on the calendar.
Yeah.
Which would kind of be akin to, I struggle to call it duty sex because I think you would want to have sex.
Yeah.
But it would be a reminder that like, hey, it's Wednesday.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking back through the week and we haven't had sex since last Wednesday because everything in life has been in a way.
Right.
Like we should definitely make time for sex today. Right.
Yeah.
Or maybe the following Wednesday, you're like, well, we just had sex on Monday. So like at least I put it on the calendar.
Right. Yeah.
like-
just a mental check.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's probably good advice.
Yeah.
for
I
women.
mean, when your babies are little, there's a lot going on. And then when you start having, like, our kids are 2 years apart. So, at a certain point, we have kind of a lot of little kids running around and you're going to work and I'm taking care of the kids. And yeah, I was more tired and had more things happening in the day to day than normal after as the kids are grown.
Yeah.
So yeah, just a little mental check. Like, have I taken care of this personal need? Oh, well, maybe it's time.
Yeah.
So yeah, not really like duty sex, but just keeping it in the forefront on the list of, things to do.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So let me, I know this is going to be very difficult for you, potentially the most difficult thing I've ever asked you to do.
Come on, don't do this to my cheeks.
I want you to put your shoes, I want you to put your feet into the shoes of a woman who is not married to, the hunk of a man that I am.
Okay.
Right? And I know that's hard, right?
It is.
Because
It is hard.
you've had me, we've been married pretty much our whole lives.
Yeah.
At least our whole adult lives. And, you've never had to experience not having the most attractive man on the earth.
Exactly.
So I know this is difficult.
Okay. I'm getting there.
Yeah. But just put yourself in that woman's shoes. So she has a husband that for whatever reason, she's not feeling having sex with him. You know,
Okay.
maybe there's something wrong with her hormones. Maybe it's her husband. Maybe there's the unresolved conflict. Maybe there's, there's all these factors.
Right.
But, she's decided that in being she wants to be a good wife to her husband, that she's going to try to work through that.
Okay.
So what would you say to that woman that comes to you and says, hey, I just don't feel like having sex with my husband. I want to for his benefit. I don't feel like it. What should she do?
Sure. So you're with your husband for several reasons, probably. And so, everybody has kind of the good and the bad to them. So you just focus on what you really love about your husband. If it's his looks are not really doing it for you, certainly you're with him for many other reasons. Maybe he's a great father to your children. He's a great provider. He's a kind man. He treats you well. He chases after you. He makes you feel beautiful. Like those are the things that you need to be focusing on because there's reasons that you're with him and you love him.
Yeah. So you're kind of saying there is some reason that you're finding yourself having trouble wanting to have sex, but there's probably lots of reasons that you would want to that you're not even considering.
Yeah.
So maybe put that out of your head and really look for those other reasons.
Yeah.
That maybe make it a little easier
Yeah.
for you.
I mean, sexy is a broad definition. We usually apply it to looks, but, some women find a man holding their infant child sexy, or taking out the trash sexy, or, washing the car is sexy.
Because he's kind of meeting that kind of more higher in the hierarchy need for the woman
Sure.
of caring for her,
Right, yeah.
seeing her protected, providing for her, those
Yeah.
sorts of things. Yeah, and that can be a big turn on. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I mean, men like a woman above their station, where a woman will go below her station for stability. So
Yeah. And we have known this scenario with a couple that we know. Yeah. Where, she flat out told you she was not attracted to her husband,
correct.
but they seemingly had a pretty good relationship anyways until they didn't.
Yeah, until they didn't.
And just because I'm sure everybody's wondering, it wasn't her.
No.
Actually, the husband stepped out on her.
Well, yes, but it takes two to tango.
Yeah, that is fair.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, maybe he wasn't feeling the passion from her,
Yeah.
like I could maybe see that. And he's
Yeah, I mean, he is the one that stepped out, but it takes two to tango. I mean, that doesn't just happen in a happy marriage.
Yeah.
But yeah. And so like just to your point though, like if it's not physical attraction, there's something else there that you can find if you really look for the attributes that you admire and find sexy in your man.
Yeah. So one of the more talked about post that I saw was Andrew Wilson. I hope that's the right last name. Sorry, Andrew. I know you're like a pretty popular guy on X in the manosphere. I think he goes on the Whatever podcast and all that. So if I'm not saying his last name correctly, I apologize for that. But I think it's Wilson.
Okay.
And he basically made a post that was like, if a wife refuses to have duty sex with her husband and like the husband has needs, he should leave. That got him a lot of flack.
Yeah.
I have very mixed feelings on that.
Same.
Right? Like
Yeah.
I would say, I mean, it is a top priority of a man, right?
Yeah.
If you're a 30-year-old dude, you got a lot of your life in front of you, and that's a lot of your life to go in a sexless marriage.
Yeah.
That would not be good. That's not going to end up anywhere good in the
No.
long run.
I don't understand sexless marriage. I have a hard time really comprehending how you get there.
Yeah, I know. Same. I don't understand it.
Yeah.
I mean, we've seen it. We've seen it in other marriages, and I don't know that we've had enough insight into those marriages to really understand what was. I mean, we know there was problems. We know what some of those problems are, and maybe it's just kind of like there's just so much underlying issues that like sex for the woman, because it's not her top need. So if her top need is not being met, right, she doesn't feel protected, cared for, you know, all those sorts of things provided for. If you're not meeting that, she's not even thinking really about that next need, right?
True,
Now,
but the cycle.
yeah, yeah, but yeah, and we'll come back to that because I don't know if everybody kind of knows what that is.
Probably not.
But I would say though that women do also kind of oddly, when they're not in a marriage, the sex thing is what they're using often
Currency.
to be the currency to get the cared for, provided thing that they're looking for. Right.
Yeah.
So what is this dynamic where you're in a marriage where you're not having those needs met, right?
Yeah.
And so the sex thing is kind of falling off. You're not interested in it. But because you're in the marriage, you're not willing to kind of step down and say, well, I'm going to use the sex thing as a currency to get back to what I need here.
Right. Yeah.
You know, that's the part that doesn't make any sense to me, because you were using the sex thing to get into the marriage in the first place, right? Even if you weren't having sex, you were still using the sex thing because there's some attractiveness there. There's some, you know, a lot of men, part of the reason they want to be in a marriage is, you know, kind of unfettered access to sex.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
And, you know, hopefully with a beautiful woman who stays beautiful, all those things. Right. So why doesn't the woman fall back to using that as her currency to get her the thing that she wants?
Yeah.
Which is getting the man back to providing for her, protecting for her, the things that really turn her on.
Right.
Why?
Yeah.
I mean, what is that? Why use it before marriage, and then once you're in the marriage, not use it in these cases where this is happening?
Yeah. I don't really know.
Yeah.
I don't really know. I mean, obviously, I've talked to friends who were having trouble in the bedroom, and usually it's a reflection of something else going on in the marriage, a hard conversation that needs to be had around some other issue. But yeah, women, you know, sex is a vulnerable thing for women. So in order to feel good having sex, you need to be feeling like cared for and provided for. But it's also a cycle, like you were talking about, like the more we give our man sex, the more he wants to provide for us. So like you said, it's not a manipulative currency in marriage, but it is a currency that both men and women use, kind of. You thrive off of it.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's just being realistic. I mean,
Yeah.
men like sex. Men respond to sex. If you have any question about that whatsoever, look no further than the advertising that's fed to men.
Yeah.
This is no secret,
Yeah.
right? So
Men are always paying for sex in some way, shape, or form, really.
Yeah.
Like if you're dating, you're going on dates. If you're marrying, you're like, you know, I mean, it doesn't, quote, come for free because we're married. Like we do things for each other.
Yeah. I mean, you're in the relationship. A big part of the reason you're in a relationship is because sex.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's just things that come with being in a relationship.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the benefit to marital sex, I think, is, you know, the more you get to know somebody, the more you really get to know what they like. And then the more freedom that you kind of have to, you know, just be unfettered.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't know. I don't know why women would withhold sex, honestly.
Yeah, it's a mystery.
Yeah. Like I said, never have I ever regretted it. I mean, I'm not always like in top mood, but.
Yeah. Well, how could you not with me? I mean,
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Like I said, it might take a little bit longer, but never have I ever regretted it.
Yeah. Yeah. So kind of looping back to what Andrew said, I mean, it got a lot of people upset that he said that, right?
Yeah.
Because I think, you know, there were women who were like, women don't owe you sex.
Yeah. I mean, that's true. You don't owe it, but
Yeah.
it should be a freely given part.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, here's what I would say. I would agree. I mean that, people, I'm struggling with the word "owe," and I'm going to tell you why.
I think "owe" is the wrong word.
I'm going to tell you why. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, you have a right in a marriage to, I mean, you can withhold sex from your husband, right? I think that's a bad idea. I think you're heading down a bad road.
Yeah.
But to say that you don't owe your husband sex, I mean, that's part of the expectation your husband had in marriage. So your husband entering into the marriage covenant with you, part of what his expectation was sex.
I don't recall that in our vows. Like you're getting into my cheeks again.
That's the one I said under my breath.
Okay. No, I mean, I understand what you're saying.
It is part of the marriage, right?
It's implied.
It's implied, sure. I mean, that is, I mean, it is a big driver for men.
Sure. I mean, in certain times, a marriage wasn't even like, I don't even know if that's still a thing. Like you can annul a marriage if you've never had sex. Like a marriage isn't even
I don't know if that's still a thing.
Tied until you've had sex.
It's like king.
Right.
Like the king
that used to be like a real thing.
Yeah. How freaky is that? Like you're like the king and then like you got a whole bunch of witnesses come to watch you have sex with the queen so that they can, make sure that, weird.
I'm good. Thanks.
But, yeah. So I don't, I guess what I would say is I think you owe your marriage sex, right? And if you don't, if you don't want to have if you don't want to have sex, if you feel like you don't owe your marriage sex for whatever reason, then I would say you're not in the marriage. And so kind of to Andrew's point, like why should the man stay in the marriage?
Yeah.
Now,
but how did you get there? How long has it been there? Have you talked about all the hard topics? Because sex is a reflection of...
And we've talked about this before. There are plenty of relationships that they would rather get a divorce than have the hard conversation.
Yeah.
Which ironically ends in hard conversations anyways when you go through the divorce, right?
Yeah.
But they'll just let their marriage fall apart instead of like resolving whatever the damn issue is.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't see us getting there. I think after a certain number of days, one or the other of us would be like, hey, why aren't we having sex?
Yeah. Because I think we have a healthy marriage, and a healthy marriage, that's what would happen.
Yeah.
These obviously aren't healthy marriages.
Yeah. But you would think like if it's trickled all the way down into quote, you're not having sex. This is not like 2 days. This is not a week. This is probably not 2 weeks. I mean, when you say to somebody, we're not having sex, I think that's a longer period of time. Like if it's gone that far, I just don't understand. Like I would be like, hey, why aren't we having sex? Like, am I fat? Or are you tired? Like, what is the problem? Can we fix it?
Yeah.
But again, and we would have that conversation until we came up with some sort of resolve.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I've talked about this before, and people who listen to us before may get sick of hearing me say it. But like, I mean, I think part of the job of you as a married couple is protecting your marriage, right? And so with that in mind, you're gonna have the hard conversation. So if I look at Avis and I'm like, hey, lose a couple pounds because this is, putting our marriage in jeopardy, right?
Yeah.
Then I'm gonna say it.
Yeah. Right? Well, and likewise, if we weren't having sex, I would be like, why aren't we having sex? Are you having sex somewhere else? Because I know as a man, like you want sex.
Yeah.
And so like I would come at you with that, I think.
Yeah.
Just to be like, hey.
Because you would want to know.
Yeah.
And because we have a healthy marriage, you would be receptive to what I would say, right?
Yeah.
Not to say that it's always easy to hear whatever the solution is.
Oh, no, we've covered that. I scream and cry and pout.
Sometimes you have.
Sometimes walk away and have to come back.
Yeah, and I'm just using this as an example
Yeah.
that it's, I'm saying lose a couple of pounds. That's not always the thing, right? Sometimes there's attitude. I mean, we've had, in the past, we were figuring things out, right? And we've had if I don't feel, there's like respect issues or something, or I feel like we get, maybe we could talk about the circle now.
The
right?
crazy
'Cause
circle.
Yeah. So, one of the concepts that we had to realize in our marriage is that, if a man, he's not getting one of his needs met. So let's just go with respect right now.
Okay.
Let's just stop talking about sex for a minute. Let's talk about respect. So he's not
They kind of
feeling,
go hand in hand.
they do
Sorry.
in some ways. Yeah.
I digress.
But, he's not feeling respected.
Right.
Right. So he doesn't feel respected and he pulls back, caring for or showing his wife the love or the protection or the thing that she needs. And she pulls back more respect. Right. So then you just have this circle that you end up in where the man's not getting the respect. He's pulling back the love. And then he's not getting the respect, pulling back the love. Right. So you do this until somebody has to step out of the circle.
Right.
And somebody has to break the cycle and say, okay, I'm not getting what I need.
Right.
But I'm going to give my spouse what they need. And you'd be amazed at how quickly that just fixes the issue.
Right.
Right. And you can do this as long as you want. And that can go a day, that can go days.
Yeah.
In worst case scenarios, that can go weeks. And at some point, hopefully you're going to get sick of it and say, why don't we just fix the damn issue?
Well, because somebody has to suck up their ego
Yeah.
and just stop.
Yeah. I vote you. It's easier for you to swallow your ego than man.
And that's usually when we're done, I'm like, fine, you're right, I'm wrong, whatever. We're moving on from this.
Yeah. Yeah. And I do think it's kind of, if it is like respect, that is part of it. Like a man, he's not going to feel, it's going to feel not respectful to him to go to his wife and say like, okay, I'm going to start, I'm going to start giving you the thing you need when you're not giving me the thing, right? It might be easier for the wife to give the respect. And I'm not saying that's a good trait. I'm not saying that at all.
Right.
I'm just saying it is the reality of the world that we live in.
Right.
Right. And it's the reality of men and how men are. So,
and I want a manly man. So,
yeah. And you want a manly man.
Yeah.
Right. So, yeah. So, the thing that I'm hesitating on a little bit with what Andrew said is like, there is the God factor, right? God hates divorce. So where I am struggling with this is if you're not, where's the line? Like, where's the line that like, you're like, okay, we haven't had sex in 3 weeks. I'm out of here. That's extreme.
that
I would say
seems extreme.
Yeah, dude, like there's, you need to be working on stuff, right?
Yeah.
But then I saw somebody posting and commenting on one of these duty sex posts, and they were like, my wife and I had sex 3 times in 12 years or something like that.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And so like, I mean, golly, I feel for that guy.
Yeah. I mean, have they had the conversations? Has
Well,
he told his wife how important
they got a
sex
divorce.
is?
There was more to the story. It was like before
Yeah.
she finally left. So, I mean, there was
Well, I'm
something
gonna
going on
sneeze.
there. You're going to sneeze.
Maybe.
Don't sneeze into the mic.
I know.
Okay.
Okay.
Gonna sneeze or no sneeze?
I don't know. I don't
can
know.
mute you over here, I think.
No, it's okay.
Okay. Yeah. So what is the, like, I mean, obviously there's something they weren't talking about. Okay?
Right,
But,
yeah.
but they never, like, that's water under the bridge. They're not having sexual toilet. So the man finally, like, in his frustration, and I mean, he wasn't even the one that left that relationship. In this case, he said it was the woman. At least that's what he said. I don't know. I only know what he said.
Right.
But like, would that be too extreme? Like, does God expect a man to stay basically? I mean, it's basically a sexless marriage, right?
Yeah.
3 times in 12 years, you're in a sexless marriage.
Yeah.
I the 3 times don't even count. So, does God expect a man to stay in that marriage?
Well, I mean, I'm not God, but it seems so sad.
Yeah.
Like so sad.
Yeah.
And if the marriage is sexless and you haven't, like, I still think you need to put in the work. Like, try to figure out what the issue is. I don't think a blanket like, oh, we have a sexist marriage and we haven't even been trying.
Yeah.
Like, that's not good enough for me.
Yeah.
I think you have to have the hard conversation. You
Yeah.
have to try to figure it out. And
I mean, if this gentleman came to me and he said, Rob, my wife and I have had sex 3 times in the last 12 years, like, I'm thinking about leaving the marriage. You know, I would say to that guy, okay, well, you're already kind of at the worst end point you could be at with this, right? You're ready to dissolve your relationship. So, what do you have to lose by going? Like, have you had the hard conversations? Like, you just run down the list, right? Like, have you gone and had the conversation? It's going to cause the tears. It's going to cause the yelling. It's going to cause the whatever that is.
Yeah.
Have you had that? And if you haven't, then go have it, because you're about to have it anyways when you dissolve your marriage, right?
Right.
That's going to be emotionally taxing, and it's going to be, there's going to be a lot with that. And see if you can fix it.
Yeah.
If you have done those things, right? Maybe they've been through all of that. Like, I would struggle with kind of what to tell that guy from there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
Sure.
I mean, it would be interesting to talk to the wife and kind of have that conversation and say, like, maybe between the two of them, if they haven't been having the discussion, like, you could kind of get to the bottom of what really is the underlying thing here.
Yeah.
But I mean, it would be, I would have a very difficult time saying to that man, like, yeah, you need to stick it out, dude. Like, you're in a marriage and you're like, that's it. Like, you're in it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like,
I mean, I just can't imagine if you desire to have sex and you're not having sex in your marriage, what is that doing to your mind? Like, when you watch TV or you see other people being intimate on screen, or you see people holding hands in public, like,
yeah. Or somebody's trying to sell you taco sauce with a chick in a bikini.
yeah, right? I mean,
whatever. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. It's a difficult situation. So I kind of like, I can understand where Andrew was coming from, right? I mean, I can understand that he's, at some point you probably got to be like, I mean, you could maybe even argue that the wife had already divorced you anyways. I mean, even though you were still legally married,
right?
From a spiritual point of view, she's not into marriage.
Yeah.
Right. She's abandoned you. And so maybe you're already divorced. I mean, maybe that's the answer.
Yeah.
Maybe that is the answer.
Yeah, because I mean, at that point, you're just roommates.
Yeah. You're just living with somebody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, 12 years is extreme. It should never go that long. I mean, I'm guessing 4 weeks we start asking each other. Do we even make it that long?
Gone?
Yeah.
I don't even know we've even gone that long. Ever. I mean, if we had, it certainly would have been around childbirth.
Yeah.
I'm not a super fan of childbirth.
Yeah, me neither.
Like it. Yeah, kind of like it. That whole like it is an amazing like miracle process, but the whole like there's nothing sexy about it.
No, we agree on that.
Yeah. Like we need to like let's pop that kid out and get over that.
Yeah,
and move on. Right. So
but yeah, I mean, I just can't imagine a time where it lingers.
Yeah. So let's kind of veer back to like a healthy, more like what it should be. Right?
Okay.
So we're just a normal couple, I think.
Yeah.
And sex in our 20s prior to kids. I mean, how many times a week?
I don't know.
Probably at least 3, 4.
Okay.
Yeah. I feel like that.
Yeah.
Then kids come onto the scene, right? We're getting a little older. Kids are coming onto the scene, and we're now into like our 30s. Or well, for us, we have our first kid. You were 26. Okay, so, we're kind of into our mid to late 20s, going into our 30s. We've got kids. It's getting a little more difficult, right? But I'd say we still probably, at least, probably not less than 3 times a week. Maybe some weeks 2.
Yeah.
Never
2
less
to
than
3.
2.
Yeah,
Yeah.
2 to 3.
Yeah, and sometimes that's just scheduling, right? And as the kids get older, it's kind of weird because there's different stages, right?
Yeah.
Like
There's when they're not paying attention, but they're
Yeah.
time demanding. And then when they're old enough to really understand what's
pay
happening,
attention and all
but
that,
they
yeah.
don't really need your time as much.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, because there's phases.
yeah.
right?
And then
So,
you were
like,
working from home for a while. So that like lunchtime sex was a big thing for a while because the kids were out at school.
yeah, right, yeah.
Yeah.
I'd clock
So-
out and take that lunchtime break, and
Yeah.
nobody at work needs to know what was happening during my lunch. So, yeah. And okay, and then so now we're kind of more like kids are out of the house. We're in that like empty nester phase, right? And it's just the two of us home, and
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I'd say 2 or 3 times a week, still kind of the norm. But we're also, we're 50 years old, right? And I want to, I mean, it's a part of natural life, right? The sex
Yeah.
drive that I had when I was 20 versus the sex drive that I have now, 30 years plus later, it's not the same.
Yeah.
I mean, it's still, I don't want to make it like, I think in some ways the sex we're having, the quality is better
Yeah.
in some ways. But the frequency, maybe not as much. Right.
Yeah.
But still, I don't know how we compare to other 51-year-old couples. But yeah, I mean, pretty dang consistently 2 to 3 times a week.
Yeah.
When we're home, we do travel,
Yeah.
quite a bit. We do, we like to go spend a lot of time in the dirt. We do a lot of camping. There are times that we will be out camping for a week or 2 at a time. And you don't always have access to a shower. Right?
No.
So, those would maybe be some exceptions.
Yeah. Well, you're
Where-
not clean on the front end to want to do it. And then even if you are clean on the front end, you don't have a way to clean up on the back end. So it gets not.
Yeah. Yeah. You're saying you're not clean before sex, but even if you are clean before sex, you're not clean after sex.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, our current life, it kind of ebbs and flows a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, and frankly, like, when you're cleaned up, you look great now, right?
Oh, thank you.
But sometimes we went out camping for 4 days.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just like, I'm not really feeling clean myself, and you're not looking so great yourself, right? So,
I mean, I still have a lingering zit.
yeah, I see that. It's right there. Maybe we can we'll zoom.
I did
in
what I
here on
could.
this
Yeah,
thing.
I did what I could. It happens.
Yeah, hey, I think it's great. You're still getting zits at 50, right?
Great. It's great.
Still nice and spry. Yeah, I just had
Exactly.
some blood work done, and I just got the results back from it this past Monday. Today's Tuesday. It was yesterday, and yeah, it's good. Like my everything was good, and my age, according to my blood work, was actually decently lower than I actually am.
I know. I need to do that. I need
Yeah, you
to. I
would
need
do
to
it.
have my blood work.
You want somebody
me
to
I'm-
tell you that you're really like in the body of a 30-year-old, and
Exactly. Exactly.
So, anyways, a little tangent there, but yeah, I think so. Yeah, just being transparent, and I think that's what our life has kind of looked like sex wise. If somebody is looking for a barometer of, hey, here's a couple that's been together for 30 plus years, and this is kind of like in terms of frequency what their sex life looked like. I mean, I think it's been a little more early 20s before kids, a little bit, not much different, right?
Yeah.
Some little, ebbs and flows in there with kids on average 2 to 3 times a week. And now moving into our 50s, about the same,
Yeah.
depending on travel
Yeah.
and that sort of stuff. So,
Yeah.
yeah. And no duty sex here.
No.
Yeah.
No duty sex. But, I would be up for duty sex if it ever came to that.
If it came to it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thankfully, that's not something we're struggling with.
No.
So yeah, I don't know what else to say on that topic. I mean,
Yeah. I worked with a woman when I was in my 20s, and she was in easily her 70s. And she used to hold hands with her husband, and, being a young, dumb 20-something, I was like, oh, that's so cute. You guys still hold hands. And she was like, we still get down in the bedroom. And I was like, what? No. She was like, yes, and you will too.
Yeah.
So
I've
held those words.
At 20, looking at somebody who's 50 years ahead of you.
Yeah.
Like you're like, man, I don't know if I can see it, right? But at 50, looking at somebody who's now 20 years ahead of me, I can see it.
Yeah. Yeah. But, I was like, well, they're not in their prime. They don't look like they used to. This was a long time married couple. So that sort of like set perspective for me in that young age. And I was like, oh, okay. Yeah. So you can be old and still getting it on.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. They would hold hands, and, we opened doors for her. Very similar to our relationship now. And, that was a very pivotal statement for me. I was like, okay, I see you.
Yeah. Yeah.
So.
Yeah, we've always, I think, pretty much had that. I've always open your doors, always, gentleman kind of a thing, right? I don't see that stopping.
No, you came to pick me up for prom, and you opened the door and put me in the car. And when I got back from prom, I was with my aunt at the time, and she was like, that's a good young man.
Yeah. What's she say about me now?
Probably the same.
Yeah. Anything else we need to say about duty sex, or you think we beat it up enough?
I think we beat it up enough. I mean, I think it's something that you should do.
Yeah.
Because never have I ever regretted having sex.
Yeah.
So, and if it's something that you're regretting, there's a deeper conversation to be had.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's an important part of your marriage.
Yeah.
You should try to figure it out. Like, don't digging your heels in and say we're not doing it. It's not going to end anywhere good.
Yeah.
So if you care about your marriage, you married this person for a reason, go figure out what it is.
We're both blunt and upfront, but as a woman, if you're having a hard time having sex with your husband and you're unable to focus on the good attributes, like you can't get past maybe the looks is what's hanging you up, and you can't just focus on the good attributes, I would have that conversation as well. Yeah. When he's like, why aren't we having sex? Tell him why.
Yeah.
Work on that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. Agreed.
Yeah.
All right.
Anyways.
Well, let's wrap this thing up.
Okay.
I'm hungry. So
I thought you were going to say we have time to have sex, but no, you want food. Okay. We'll get you some food.
Maybe food first. Then,
okay. Yeah.
No Seinfeld mixing the food. I'm never going to go there.
No.
All right. Well, hey, thanks for hanging out with us for a bit, and we'll see you on the next one.